Let's talk about freelancers. I think a lot of people think they can just start an agency and get the work and pass it off to someone and then hand it back to the client without being involved. And that's where they run into issues. Obviously, having systems, having processes, having some level of quality assurance is important. How are you able to scale over time with these freelancers? What is your process?
So for us, I would say depending on what facet of the business we're looking at, the onboarding process will look a little bit different. But starting with overarching trends and habits that we have in terms of onboarding, I do think one of the big issues that we see in the general freelance world, let's say, and the thought perception that goes into the freelance economy is, unfortunately, I think a lot of people live under the assumption that they can find this great freelancer who specializes in X or specializes in Y, can ultimately put them on a client project with minimal oversight, minimal processes, and no training, and just expect them to do the work and then be able to bill out, 4, maybe 6 times that rate that the freelancer is charging them. We've decided since day one that any services we offer, we need to have very firm processes in place in order to actually roll out that service. So really I would say before you even get into hiring freelancers, the biggest thing to focus on is ensuring that there are concrete processes in place for everything that you're going to ask that freelancer to do. And I like to put this in the terms of, make it so easy that someone who is like literally just getting out of school could look at this and say, okay, so this is how we do an SEO foundation at Junto, or okay, this is exactly how we do QA testing, and here's the document that we use to mark any sort of change request that we need our lead developer to make here. But once you get beyond those processes, which are, I guess I would say like step 0, biggest thing that I found is going through a testing project with all these different freelancers that you do find. So, one of the things I love about free up, my apologies. I was going to say one of the greatest things about it is the vetting process is obviously a lot easier than a lot of the other tools we've worked with. We'll say there's a lot of other great platforms out there. We've used Upwork quite a bit in the past and have really only recently shifted over to FreeUp. But one of the nice things about FreeUp is that, obviously I don't have to tell you this, Nathan, but you guys do really just a kick-ass job of saying, hey, you know what, here's one freelancer, or maybe here's 2 or 3 freelancers that we would highly recommend. Why don't you try talking to them and see how things work out with them? But regardless of whether you use FreeUp and have 1 or 2 really high quality freelancers provided to you, if you use a tool like Fiverr, Upwork, and have to do just a lot more vetting yourself, biggest thing we found is asking a couple of vetting questions that are going to test out for hard and soft skills that are going to be relevant for the freelancer. One of my all-time favorite questions, really regardless of the role, is I'll ask a very vague question, something to the nature of, my name is Pat Ahern, or my business partner's name is David. What's my email address, or what's their email address? The type of thing where if they take 5 seconds, they go on Google and they search for how to find someone's email address, they're going to find hundreds of different articles telling them exactly how to do that. But just little questions like that force them to think a little outside the box and force them to really show, are they the type of person who's going to go out and do their own outside research before reaching out with questions. Once we go through a couple of those hard and soft skill centric questions, we'll hop on a phone interview, just get a better sense for their experience, and really just get a better sense for how do their answers that they're providing either on their resume, on the screener questions that we send them, align with the actual phone interview. Then some more technical questions that'll come into that. So if it's going to be SEO centric, content centric, I'll usually spearhead that conversation, ask them about some just really jargony terms and see how they respond to it. Similarly, if it's web dev, my business partner, David, will tackle a lot of those questions with them. But once we find a few freelancers we're really excited about, what we'll do is we'll take them through the onboarding process that will start with putting them on a test project. So we're very firm believers, and we've learned this the hard way, that you ultimately shouldn't bring someone onto the team as a regular team member until you've proven their worth through a quality project that they've completed. So if we're, let's say, bringing on a new web developer, what we'll do is we'll actually have them build out a single page website, and we've already created the design files. And throughout the process, we'll look at what is the quality of their code base. We'll have our lead developer actually vet that, just see, hey, are they incorporating inline CSS and JavaScript? Are they deferring JavaScript? and a whole bunch of things along those lines. Are they using a repository like Git? Are they using, oh boy, Dylan would be ready to strangle me with how poor this the web dev vetting stuff is. But long and short of it, we'll look at just a lot of different elements in terms of trying to figure out what is their code base. Similarly with SEO, we might give them an SEO foundation and say, hey, here's a little bit of information about a sample client that we might be working with. Walk us through the process of how you'd build out an SEO foundation. And they're not going to be anywhere near perfect in most cases. In some cases, we've been really lucky and they've been way better than us, and we've been able to improve our process while bringing them on board right off the bat. But the biggest thing we're looking for is A, how well do they communicate? B, do they ask really good questions? C, do they complete deliverables on time? And D, do they have a good overall knowledge about the subject matter? Once we've gone through that, then we'll start putting them on some easier client projects to a very small scale, make sure that they ramp up and that they're completing their work on time. And then ultimately we'll just scale it up from there.
So are you hiring people that are highly skilled in bringing their own strategy, or are you hiring more specialists and conforming them to your systems? Or are you hiring more, you mentioned like basic people, like just out of school, that they may have a little bit of experience, but you want to get them to do it your way?
It's a great question. So I would say a little mix of all three. Biggest thing that we try to focus on is any service we provide, we always want to make sure that we have an in-house full-time strategist who is an expert in that subject matter, who will ultimately be building out and leading the process development for any changes to that service. That being said, we honestly have some really incredible people on the team who came on board and right off the bat, or maybe 6 months in, started asking really great questions, saying, hey, why are we doing this way? Or have we thought about doing it that way? And when we get that feedback, I would say within a month, we'll usually roll out the majority of that feedback to ultimately help to continue to improve our processes. Certainly, we'll bring on some really highly skilled freelancers as well that might be coming in at a much higher hourly rate. For us, though, the biggest thing we found is if we can build out these well-informed processes based on the expertise of our in-house team, and then can ultimately bring in freelancers that are very experienced, but may not be coming in at that $100, $150 an hour. Long-form content creation is really the way to continue to do content moving forward, and probably will be for the very long term. The average first page result on Google is about 1,900 words, give or take.